begin that.
Okay. Felt Aru. That's welcome in Manx Gaelic. As president of the North American Manx Association, I'm delighted to welcome you all to our meeting with Captain Myles Standish of the ship Mayflower, which landed in Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1620. The good captain is head of the militia overseeing the security of the settlers. We are very proud that he has Manx heritage, as does his wife. We hope Captain Standish will explain more as he tells us about his life in the Plymouth settlement. During this meeting, your Zoom connection will be set on mute. If you have a question for Captain Standish, please write it in the chat column. I'd like to thank Plymouth Patuxet for helping us to arrange this event, and to Evan Crocker for taking the time to make up for our misunderstanding at the NAMA convention in August. Over to you, Captain Standish.
Well, I thank you, Kelly. It is good to be here with all of you here in front of me as of right now. I said before, I am Captain Myles Standish. I am currently the captain here at the colony of New Plymouth. I've been the captain since our first arrival here. What has happened back when we first arrived here is the peoples that were upon this ship, Mayflower, they simply did not know what they were expecting. The only two peoples that actually had gone to the Americas beforehand was Gunman Stephen Hopkins and the sailors beforehand on Mayflower. And so it was up to me to be able to take a band of textile workers and weavers and try to make them have some sort of order. But methinks I tried to strive myself onto the Roman Emperor Augustus and be patient with the men and make sure their slow progress to learn how to be soldiers. Every lad betwixt the ages of 16 and 60 will know the art of soldiering here. There is no standing army that is here within the Americas. We are the only successful English colony here within the Americas as well. Jamestown will say otherwise, but they're lying to you. So for here, we are the only source here. Now, I can see by all of your faces that why is there a need for a militia? Why is there a need for an army? Is there a great threat that is supposed to be here? I will tell you, under the guidance of Governor William Bradford, he has attempted to make peace and diplomacy with all the native peoples that are here. There's over 69 different nations that have arrived here. So there's more of them than there is of us. There are some times where the native peoples that are here, we have allied ourselves with the Pokanoket Massasoit, the great sachem of most of the native peoples here. They all pay fealty to him. But with his allies and friends, we inherit those, but his enemies, we inherit them as well. There is this one time. I will share a quick and short story. There was a native messenger that arrived in the colony of New Plymouth. He ran as fast as he could, and he arrived with a freshly made arrows wrapped in a rattlesnake skin and handed it to Governor Bradford. Now, Master Winslow was with his special friend Tokumahaman, and Tokumahaman saw the arrows and the rattlesnake skin and said to Governor Bradford, This is an act of war. So the tension that you can see here, all the peoples within the town, they are not soldiers, they're only mere farmers. And so we had a choice to make. Do we ourselves stand up for ourselves and send something back? Or do we just wait for the inevitable doom to come? So what we did, we took that rattlesnake skin and we filled it with powder and with shot. And we closed it up and we sent it back with the messenger all the way back to Cononagans at the Narragansett. Now, this is what I'm embarrassed to say. We don't think the rattlesnake skin ever arrived to Cononagans at the Narragansett. Apparently, the rattlesnake skin was bouncing from town to town to town and arrived back on our doorstep. So the bluff we were making really didn't actually happen. But the people here, it is up to my job and my duty to oversee them. But it is interesting here within the colony, of New Plymouth. It is different than England. It is different than Man. It is different than Lancaster. It is different in Yorkshire and London and so on. There are people from all walks of life that are here. And we need some sort of guidance or maybe an act of God to all get along together. Thank you. So at this time, hello everybody, and Jeff is also coming in as well. That was a short monologue that was created for here at Plymouth Patuxet Museums. My name is Evan Crocker, and I am the museum theater manager here at Plymouth Patuxet Museums. So what you just experienced is one of our many selections that when you come in and experience the actual history here at the museum, you'll come in and interact with one of these guests, these real life historical figures. But here with Living History at Plymouth Patuxet Museum, it's a beautiful moment, but a great challenge as well. Mostly at the beginning of all of this here at the museum, we have descendants that come here and go and interact with Captain Standish, Governor Bradford, and so on. So they're meeting their great-great-grandparents. But here's the challenge. Sometimes we don't know about anything about that person. Case in point, there is an example of a pilgrim. His name is Joseph Rogers. Joseph Rogers, we know, arrived on the ship Mayflower and had a lot of kids. That's it. That's all we know. Case in point with this talk and this speaker bureau today is that Captain Standish is also one of those people. So as of right now, with me talking to the North American Manx Society, there is a very controversial issue that every historian seems to have a fight and a battle with. Where in the blasted heck is Standish from? Now, as of right here, as of right now, I know for a fact that I know my audience. We'll say he's from Man for now, okay? But here's the interesting part, is I'm also going to do another selection of another monologue that we have created for him. And within this monologue is going to be what we know about him. I did the Canonicus story for you earlier, so we will skip over that moment. But here we actually have the reason why people think he's from Man and from Lancaster is because of his will. He says that he has actual, when he dies and he passes, they say he has inheritance in land in actual, on the Isle of Man itself, and also in Lancaster as well. It actually says in direct quote that he is a gentleman of the northern part of England. Now that's a really big thing to unpack here. Why is there a gentleman, a man of high-born nobility, here with a bunch of Reformed Christians? So I'll get into that section after we do another piece for all of you as of right now. So this is, if you come and experience Captain Standish down in the village, this is another piece that will be performed here. And this is within there, I will go in to explain the process of us creating these pieces and the process of creating these museum theater pieces that are here. And what are the actual primary source facts and stories is also through his wives. Can you talk about them? I can, yes, I can as well. We know that his first wife, Rose Standish, was from Man. I'm gonna do something that as a person who works in history, I'm gonna do the most frustrating thing for every person who is here in this talk. Sometimes I'm going to say the phrase, I don't know. Because simply, sometimes I don't know. Unless the people here of the North American Manx Society actually have a journal of Rose Standish and Barbara Standish.
Yeah, we think we do. We have one in the Isle of Man. Yes, in the Manx rolls. They're from Lezayre in the north of the island, and they are our Manx connection.
Huh?
They're cousins of Myles, So we know that we have Manx people here from the through their descent.
I
Barbara's
would love to see those scrolls. I would love to see them. They're not, are they in Manx Gaelic? Because that's going to be the very difficult part of all this.
I don't know, but I can put you in touch with the people who do.
I would love to, because it'll be one of the big things here is we didn't know anything about Susanna Winslow 5 years ago. And then there was literally documentation that came out about her within the Prince's Annals and looking through it. So it'd be amazing if you guys could be able to give us that process as well. But without more further ado, we'll do another piece that Standish does, and I will break down the process of actually what is the theater process that we do here, and more importantly, where are the primary sources, and what do we know about Standish and his wife directly after the piece is done. So without further ado, I will go away because I'm less interesting. And so we'll bring Captain back out again. All right. So this is one of our pieces that is performed daily here at Plymouth Patuxet Museums. And I did some of this beforehand. I'm so sorry. I cut and bit pieces into it. Sometimes methinks the Lord didst cause me to be appointed captain to teach me the virtue of patience. I strive like to be on to the Roman Emperor Augustus, and to be patient with the men and their slow progress as I learn them the skills of soldiering. I can know that they're not as bred soldiers as I, but 'tis hard, and I fear I more often fail at it than succeed. I am rather choleric in my humours, very hot and fiery, thus I am quick-witted and quick to react. My dear wife, though, she feeds me all the cooling herbs that I can withstand into my body. So she will have fish with any scare addition of sauce. She will have boiled lettuce. She will have pompion, and her kitchen garden is all with cooling herbs. As captain, I am the leader of this militia, of these men, these farmers, these weavers that are here. None of them hath fired a musket afore in their life. Do you know that if you were to buy a musket within England, that the musket itself you cannot use to hunt, for it is illegal? So you are here, you have men that have acquired pieces, but never shot it once in their life. Now, our militia is divided into 4 squadrons or companies within its own commander. Should there be an alarm, every man can know where his squadron is to muster. And if there is a cry of fire in town, one squadron is appointed to betake themselves to their arms and stand on their guard in a circle with their backs towards the fire, enclosing the house or place so it is endangered as to prevent any treachery. But as I see with your faces, be not afeared, be not afraid. We've had not conflict that is here. That the Lord hath driven away all of our enemies. But thus 'twas indeed the real threat was against our militia, our town, that caused me to order our militia thusly. This is the reason why we hath created it, because of Canonicus. Now, I have spoken beforehand on Canonicus, I now say it again. A man had come as a messenger with a arrow wrapped in rattlesnake skin as an act of war. Thus said Master Winslow's friend Toka Muhammad. And we sent back with it, with powder, shot, as a bluff, as an act where onto all of this, we were going to be, we are going to be the ones to be more powerful than him. But it did not arrive there, and I apologize. After Canonicus, his challenge, we did receive word and a message from Jamestown. Arrived there, there was over 327 men had been massacred by the native peoples there. It was dangerous. The Americans, we are the only peoples here to protect each other. Now, we have to do something to protect ourselves. We cannot just create houses where within here it is, we are defenseless. And so I enacted and ordered a great amount of a palisade to be created all the way around and impale the entire places, the entire town, and create a fort on top of the hill where our gun deck is to be able to fend off any incoming attack. But I will say to you once again, we are not need to fear the native peoples. I am more afraid of Europeans coming across the ocean. We were saying God save King James 3 years after he was dead. Now we do not know. Well, as of right now, when I'm speaking to you, Prince Charles, now King Charles, has married Princess Henrietta. And now Princess Henrietta, as we all can know, is the ruling leader of France. And so now France is all over English control. But if you ask a Frenchman that, they'll say otherwise. So we are here within the colony of New Plymouth. And do not know what shall become of us. Only God will have that determination. But methinks, the one thing that God hath destined me is to always be his soldier. Thank you. All right, to break down what has just happened, hello everyone who has just joined in again. That is another piece broken up into primary sources. So can I saw there was a question beforehand, and I'll answer that now before we get into the breaking down of monologues and Standish himself. I think it was, what has made Plymouth more successful than other plantations in Virginia, for example? Great question. So the big reason behind why Plymouth Colony was successful is because they were not at war with the native people surrounding all around Virginia. So what makes this very different, and what is interesting about Standish, and this is actually a good thing to jump into, we have no idea where his origins are. We have documentation from my friends in the North American Manx Society that his cousins are there within man. Amazing. Now we have him located there, but why does he end up in Leiden and things of that nature? That is one section, and I'm going to table that, and we'll get back to it, and we'll go back to Virginia. So in Virginia right now, you have men of different Englishmen of varying different statuses and stations. So for my friends who are actual English, and maybe this is still true now, it's probably not. But if you are born within the society in the 17th century, you are born to that station in life, you cannot go up, you can only go down 6 feet underground. So when you are here, you also translate that to wherever you go. So if I'm a noble gentleman here, God has born me into a higher society, a higher place in which I myself can actually go and rule all the other people that are lower than me because God has put me there, of course. There's going to be a lot of rationale that I'll say because God has put me there. That's going to come up a lot. So in Virginia, you had people who were placed in the world of leadership and nobility, and you had everyone underneath him. And so there was constant conflict. Here, the Americas were come to 100+ years before the Pilgrims, Captain Myles Standish, had arrived beforehand. And so in Virginia, the people that are there, that are in Virginia, in the colony right now, are in constant conflict with each other, fighting each other the entire time, fighting the native people. And so it is not until much, 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 much later, until the crown gets involved and said, hey, knock it off. Can we actually get some sort of return from our investment here? So in 1623, in the monologue is an actual primary source. A messenger came from Jamestown and announced 323 or 27 men had died due to the Powhatan people coming and massacring them. And so what makes it different is we will now go on the journey of Captain Standish and coming to Plymouth, right? I'm going to go through it, and some of the primary sources are and stuff I said in the monologue beforehand. But we'll go into this is sort of the reason why it is successful. So in Captain Standish fights in the Low Countries, the Netherlands versus the Spanish. And for some reason, he kind of disappears from history, but he arrives in Leiden. So at this time, there are two, the Protestant Reformation has happened. So what this means is people are going outside the Church of England, which is a big old no-no, depending on the king or the queen at the time. So Captain Standish, this is going to also be, I'm going to say, this is historical theory and also Evan's personal view. I'll preference it beforehand. So what we say here at the museum, also, this is Evan's character choice. Just so that if you go and say this to another historian and you're like, who, what did he just say? Is that Standish, we know, was from the King's Church in the beginning when he is fighting in the Low Countries. And then he all of a sudden disappears, and now he's there in Leiden with Rose Standish. So that's interesting. So a man who is a soldier, who is English in nature and all of this stuff, he is here at this moment and has basically transformed his entire life. He now believes thoroughly what the Church of Leiden is the separatists or the pilgrims, in the exact staunch contrast to the country he just fought for. So why is that? We'll break it down. The Church of England is a bunch of basically becoming Catholic light. King James at the time starts implementing more bishops and ministers and things of that nature, a lot more fanfare, a lot more smells, bells, and whistles. While the church, the separatists, believe that's a little bit too papist and you're getting away from the overall message, because we will actually see that King James is using his faith as a political means. But what politician would ever do that, use their faith as a political mean? That will never, ever happen, ever. But Captain Standish is here. Captain Standish has transformed his life. He's taken a confession of faith. We know, we can theorize here at the museum that he's taken a confession of faith, because why would he be there with the pilgrims? That's the big part behind all of this. His worldview and perspective has changed. And if he is within his will, a gentleman and a nobility and a lord, why are you here? We can theorize that it's probably because of what he saw in the Low Countries and what he fought for. It was the versus the Spanish and versus the English. It was the 70 Years' War, then the 30 Years' War, and more war after that. And in this time period, the Spanish usually just start pointing at things, and they go, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. And they start fighting countries over it for no good reason. But we know in one of the battles, and an example maybe why he has changed his personality, is there was a battle in the Netherlands where it was 100,000 soldiers altogether, 50,000 Spanish versus 50,000 English and Dutch, fighting on the other side. Now, war and conflict with all those people fighting at each other, it's not as glorious as you think it is. Lord of the Rings makes it look pretty, Braveheart makes it look pretty, so on and so forth. Basically, within this battle, 70,000 people died in the span of 15 minutes. Yeah. Basically, a big cacophony. So soldiers go and fight each other, muskets, cannon fire. It gets ugly and brutal. So we can theorize that Captain Standish, his whole life is rocked. He may have some sort of PTSD. He may be thinking about what his whole entire life is. But there's one big thing that is there as well. He has a partner walking the highway to heaven with him, Rose Standish. We actually see that with his Rose, that he loves her very, very dearly, but they don't have children. And within the 17th century, that's a big issue. So eventually, within the Church of Leiden, he's taking confession of faith. He's transforming his life. And eventually, with the people that are in Leiden who are poorer than poor, who are basically nobodies, he goes, all right, let's get on a ship and go all the way to Mayflower. Here's the big thing behind all of this. And here's one of the most wild things about this whole entire sort of monologue and story of Evan and Standish. I've done a lot of research with Captain Standish, and I wasn't allowed to play him this year because we needed a Governor William Bradford instead. I think this guy's cooler. So you're going to see a lot of passion coming out in a second. So Standish gets on a ship and he comes all the way over across the ocean. And they arrive at the end of Cape Cod, low in provisions, but he is there with them. He's not a mercenary who has been appointed or been bought and money to come over here. He's making a deliberate decision to come over here. But again, it's that middle gray area where we don't know. And where we can theorize, Evan thinks that his whole entire world's upside down, and this is how these people saved him. That's the Evan theory. Has no historical backing whatsoever. Red flag. If you use that in normal conversation, don't. This is just acting theory with Evan. But the big thing is he's here with these people. But what we know is throughout the time within the first winter, when there was 50, over half the population passed away, Standish was one of them who was maybe barely sick. Him and William Brewster were the ones carrying the dead the entire time. This choleric, hot-tempered man was the one who has seen so much death in his life as a soldier. He is the one making sure that these farmers, these people, will never experience that hardship. And we see that throughout his whole entire life until he passes away, until he dies. Standish will do things that other people will not. And this is this Manx man. I will say he's from Man again. This is this individual. I'm not saying he's from Lancaster. I'm looking, Kelly's like, yeah, of course not. This is this man. And throughout time within there, after the first winter happens, he loses his Rose. Rose Standish passes away, we can find in January. And so this man is single. Now, what makes this really interesting is he is with a couple other gentlemen. Edward Winslow remarries immediately, who was one of our other big figures here in Plymouth Colony. Standish does not. It takes about 2 to 3 years for Standish to get remarried, where his wife comes on the Anne, and Barbara, or Babs, is the one who is, he marries. He's looking for a partner. He's not looking for any other person. Now, there is an issue here. And I will address the elephant in the room. And if some of you are like, oh, yeah, this makes sense, is the Longfellow poem, where Standish, John Alden, and Priscilla Mullins, there was that little 3-way love interest thing. It is not real. It is fictitious. Longfellow is a descendant of, I think, Alden, and really was like, he needs to win something. Alden's another guy we know very little about. We know he's a Cooper and he came here and he marries Priscilla Mullins. The Longfellow went, I'm going to write this beautiful poem, and Standish is a hooligan. We don't know. But what we do know is that he was waiting for someone, waiting for a partner in life. And eventually, so with Barbara, we see that he loves her so dearly. I actually have his will right here. That it was March 7th, 1655. He literally mentions in the 3rd paragraph, in the 3rd standing, out of all the remains according to the order of this government, my will is that my dear and loving wife, Barbara Standish, will have all the 3rd part, meaning everything. All there is the whatever comes, all the investment in there. He names his children with all the stuff afterwards. His son Josiah is his son Alexander, so on and so forth. But he gives his wife things. Barbara's so interesting because, again, why does she come here? It's a big old blank space. There is one other instance where Standish the man understands the world that he's living in the Americas and the conflict. There is one other section where a big event that is actually transpires and actually has a big impact here in New England still, with a lot of our native nations that are here, where Standish was also in the dead center of all of it. There's something called the Wessagusset Affair. And the Wessagusset Affair basically is miscommunication in a bottle. There's another ship that comes over, and this ship that comes over has men sent by Thomas Weston. Thomas Weston, an original investor of the Plymouth colony. And the native people think that they are more of the pilgrims that are there, and Governor Bradford oversees all of them. That's not the case. These are individual men acting on their own in individual ways. They go north to modern day Weymouth, people know Massachusetts, aka Wessagusset. And within there's a big issue that happens. The men of Thomas Weston don't know how to survive here, and they start stealing corn and things from the native people because they're lesser than all of them. Standish and Bradford and the Pilgrims understand all that this is again, we need to keep this balance. Eventually, long story short, is that the Massachusetts peoples, along with other nations, allied together and started amassing an army to go wipe out Plymouth and Wessagusset together. And that's intense. And we know that this is happening. But also the wrinkle in all this is that we know Massasoit, their chief ally, is dying. So Standish is there, not knowing all of this until Winslow goes down to Poconoke with Massasoit and cures him, big old quotation marks there, because he says he makes like a pottage and a potion, and then Massasoit miraculously recovers. A lot of embellishing, a lot of artistic license by Edward Winslow when he wrote his book, a lot of it. But he comes back, and Massasoit has an option. Do I tell these people this? Or do I just rid my hands of this English experiment? But Massasoit from there responds and says, these are my allies. I have to love and cherish them. And so he tells them of the overarching conflict that's about to happen, the war, the invading force. And so Governor Bradford has a decision. And there's one man who's standing there going, I know my job. I know what's about to happen. And that's Captain Myles Standish. Bradford decides to do a preemptive strike against the native people. And this is the interesting part. Again, this is the man who has seen conflict and bloodshed. This is the man from Manx who has been a soldier his entire life and is trying to look and trying to see something. He's trying to be in this new world and trying to find peace within himself and trying not to find conflict. But once again, he has to be a soldier. He goes with as least amount of men as possible to go and deal with the situation in Wessagusset. And from there, Standish basically tricks the leaders of this war party that's about to happen on concept of trading to an English house. Let's go trade. They shut the door, and 4 native men walk in, and 10 Englishmen walk in with Captain Standish, and 10 Englishmen walk out with a head, because of course we do. With the seriousness of this, Standish always will be the one that is the judgment and the thought and process on it. What we try to get accomplished across with the monologues and within the theaters, within the acting, is that this man has more. Because later on in his life, we see at the end, this man is theologically savvy. He has a whole entire debate versus Governor William Bradford about my Church of England friends. They should be able to practice as they choose. Well, Bradford goes, no, that's not the case. So with all these people that are here, with Standish, he also is a well-read man too. We know that he has the Iliad. He knows that he's Machiavelli within his library. He has over, I think, like 20-something books. And that's big for a 17th century man at this time. There's actually something really cool. There's actually we found that he has like the history of Queen Elizabeth and Mary, Queen of Scots. A little cool thing with all this, William Brewster was the servant to the Secretary of State during Queen Elizabeth's reign. So when Mary, Queen of Scots, got the letter of saying that she was treasonous and a traitor, William Brewster was in the room. So we can only imagine and we can only theorize that Captain Standish, when reading this book, can walk down the road and go, "Hey, did this really happen?"
Wow.
Yeah. So this is this man, these are the people. And so he is it's interesting doing my research on your island, your beautiful little island, of researching your native the native Manx Gaelic, and actually just trying to walk around the place virtually. You can see where the heritage of this man came from and sort of carried throughout his whole entire life. And so we have a little bit more time left, about 20 more minutes. And hopefully we have some burning questions that are within the brains of these people. And I can expound upon anything about Plymouth, about what I do. Jack wants to just show me there you go. He's looking at the light in the library. About anything, what I do with my job, about Captain Standish. And if I do know the answer, I will say it. If I don't know, I'm going to go, I don't know. And if I want to give a fun little theory, I'll do that too. But I'll say, this is Evan's fun little theory. So I will open the floor to any questions at this time. And if not, I love the sound of my own voice. I see some typing.
I think you can ask it, Bill.
Let him type. He's almost done.
There we go.
How had the colony effectively changed by the time of his death? Well done. Now he muted himself. Okay. Wait, well, what were you saying before? And you did the hand thing.
You're on mute.
Okay, yeah, now I'm off mute. Okay, yeah, it was from the beginning of the colony when he arrived until the time that he passed. You know, it might not have been clear from anything he wrote, but you know, how do you think he would have thought about the state of the colony at that time and its security, which he was in charge of for so many years?
That's a great question. So it's really interesting because we talk a lot about worldview and perspective here at the museum. What are these people? What is their life? What is the lens they look through? What is their perspective and how would they perceive something? Because the 17th century man is entirely different than Evan in the 21st century. What I will say, and what I was thinking, what we've actually seen is that he's seen the world change. That's the big thing. From the loss of the first winter, we portray here at the museum 1627. Why do we do that? Is because we know there's basically a census, and that's the year we know the most about. Before 1630 happens and Massachusetts Bay Colony comes. That's a big thing too. When I talked about this leader of religious toleration with Standish, this is the man with all of these philosophy books within there as well. When he eventually gets to Duxbury, when he sees Plymouth, it's almost very interesting because he sees when Winthrop takes power, when Boston sort of when Boston eventually absorbs Plymouth, Standish literally goes, I've worked so hard for this. What are you doing? And sort of like, maybe now I can finally be at peace. Maybe. But the big thing behind it is that his best friend in Governor William Bradford is basically fighting him the entire time. And so fighting Winthrop, not Standish itself. And trying to have this peace and balance. That's the one thing is that Standish understands what the job needs to get done in the balance. When he sees the everything within all this, the change, that's maybe why in their primary sources, he says he's choleric and fiery, and has a hot temper to him, which is maybe it's because he knows the value of life that is happening. It's like, and if you immediately go and stop, we're done for. One of the interesting things is that my favorite quote where within the Boston sort of section, eventually there's like a group of like militia members, and this is written in history, is they call him Captain Shrimp.
Mhm.
We we actually he was exhumed a couple years ago, and he's not short, he's like 5'11", 5'10", but for some reason they call him I don't know why they call him Captain Shrimp. Yeah, but they do. And maybe that's why he's so quick-tempered and everything. But awesome question. Anybody else?
I read that they called him Shrimp because he would go bright red.
It could be. I don't know. Well, we do know his description. He's the only guy we actually know of his visual description. He has fiery red hair, like I do, and like a red beard, and that was it. Like that's what we know about him.
Didn't the
But then maybe,
Wampanoag have a name for him?
huh?
Didn't the Wampanoag have a name for him?
It was Captain Shrimp.
I thought there was the settlers called him that, and the Wampanoag called him the little pot that never stops boiling.
Totally. That's funny. That's the first time I've heard that one. That's awesome. Jack.
Sorry, I couldn't find the chat button, so I'm just
No
gonna
worries.
say it. Wasn't Myles Standish mother a Lace, born a Lace from Sulby on the Isle of Man?
I have no idea.
I read that she was,
So go keep going.
well, Lace is a name, I think it's probably an English transplantation, but
Mhm.
she was born on the Isle of Man, supposedly. And you have no record of his mother.
No, we have no record of his mother. That's the interesting part of all this. So the reason why we get Lancaster and Man is actually the last line in his will, where he literally starts. He gives his son Alexander Standish, heir apparent and lawful descendant of Ormst. I'm gonna butcher this. Ormistic.
Ormskirk.
Say again.
Ormskirk.
Ormskirk. No, Borsconge.
Hang on. I think I've got the same thing up here. Burscough.
Yeah, and all the other ones before I go and butcher the rest of the names.
Wrightington, Maudsley, Newborough, Croston.
And the Isle of Man. So it's interesting because it's literally the last line. It's like on the Isle of Man, but it's also my my director of interpretation literally looked that up and it's like these are also Lancashire towns as well, and I'm like, okay. But we also know how the English work is they like a name, they usually stick with it and probably put new in front of it. So they left Plymouth and they arrived in New Plymouth, and with like New London's in Connecticut and so on and so forth. But that's really interesting, Jack, though. Really interesting. All right, shoot, more questions.
Tell us more about life. You know, what you eat, what you eat, entertainments, celebrations, festivals.
Oh, you want me to say to Standish? Oh, I see how it is. Dance monkey. It is all right, listen. Well, for me, what I do eat is anything I can get my hands on. So it is my wife, though. She is the one with all of this. Again, it's all about the cooling herbs. She's getting very frantic about me. Like, apparently, if I have any garlic or onions, apparently I'll explode. That's what's gone around in town, at least within all of this. With her, it is I've eaten so much fish without any addition of sauce on top of it. With also as much cucumbers as I can throw down my own throat. That's what I should keep eating because that's all cooling. You see, and I drink as much water because I'm fiery and just all the intensity. And entertainments, all right, the only entertainment there, Kelly, that we should be having this entire time is working in more labor. Because if I'm just like flipping a log down the lane and calling it sport, means I'm not eating the next day. You get what I'm saying? Now, with all of that as well, what there was within the first year, we did have a harvest feast where we did a stew ball and pitching the bar. And I'll tell you one thing: is I'm still the undefeated leader and champion of pitching the bar here in the colony of New Plymouth. Yeah, you can take that all the way back to the Isle of Man. Yeah. I'm the one who's going to be the lead who wins of all of this stuff. But here's another thing. Yeah, it is. I'll ask you a question. Do you celebrate December the 25th, Christmas?
I do.
Oh, you do. I'm sorry. Because nowhere in the Bible does it say that you should have December the 25th, Jesus Christ, his supposed birth. It doesn't even say it within the Bible itself, yeah, Kelly. Is that it's not within Christmas, you see. So I don't celebrate it as a Reformed Christian, but some of my neighbours do. They sing songs and things like that. But there was one time now, right? I remember when I was home, was that one of my neighbours, Arthur Allen, was drunk as a mouse on 12th night and tried to kick in my door and make a bed in my own parlour. And that's probably another reason why I don't want to celebrate Christmas, because everyone's just going to be all to that point about Christmas. Oh dear, what? You got to keep typing more, keep talking in an accent the entire time. Didn't the Puritans forbid it? I'm not a Puritan, lass. I hate saying it. I'm a separatist. I separated all the way. The Puritans, what you don't want. Oh, Devin, you're going to talk now. All right, let me see your face. There it is.
Yeah, no, but the original colony in Plymouth
We're not Puritans.
Okay.
So, all right, sorry, that's Standish talking. Don't mean to be rude and unsavory, but it is so Puritans aren't actually in Plymouth at this time. So they call themselves separatists, not actually, it's a derogatory term. So they have separated from the Church of England altogether. But here's the cool thing about all of this. Is the Church of England believes in predestination and that God has selected the elect in this world, right? The Pilgrims believe the same exact thing, except it's how they practice. So the Puritans that you think of come in 1630 in Boston, Massachusetts. And at that time, they bring no fun. They are just this entire... It's where we get the thought of I'm uptight, I won't show my ankle or any of that stuff, or like, no, don't look at me. I'm going to put something out there. When you read about the Pilgrims, wherever you are, read them as an overly emotional Italian family that shares way too much. That is who you should be thinking about. These people were. They were raunchy. They said as they are. This is all, the medieval era just kind of ended. So they're saying things out loud. They're talking about crass things the entire time. It's interesting how we get this perspective about it. Standish is also one of them as well. If you read Bradford's of Plymouth Plantation, he's just this snippy little dude the entire time, taking shots at anybody he wants. And he's just like, I hate you, you smell funny, you're not working hard enough. And it's just like a book of like, I'm better than you, sort of thing. It's his personal diary. So yeah. All right, cool. You talk more as Standish. So the accent you hear right now is a northern, is not a Manx accent, because we don't have a 17th century Manx accent. So I'm sorry, I'm going to use my Lancaster accent. So what we have here is a universal dialect that we have, because how they write is how they talk. And the spelling is all janked up because of it. Can you explain the significance of the clothing you're wearing? Is the jacket a sign of office? Great question there, William, aka Liam. So what I'm wearing right now is I'll just do an accent because I can, is a mandillion. So this is actually a soldier's garment. So it is used for a covering over the person, and because these vestigial arms, or it's basically a cape, is supposed to be keeping your powder dry, or powder dry, if you can't understand the powder part. But you'll see throughout most of like a lot of 17th century paintings and things of that nature, you'll see just capes everywhere. People loved capes. They loved like vestigial sleeve, like they loved it so much. As much as they, so that's the thing, is we knew they're not Puritans because again, just a lot to there's a little bit too much that's going on with like the clothing and things of that nature. We don't know what it looks like, but like we can infer that it's like a little bit of fun. All right, questions, answers.
Did they wear hats like this?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So great. Kelly does a great thing. So how do we get the black and white buckle hat? There is one, there's literally, you're the bane of my existence. I hate those hats so much. People come to the museum and they're in like their spirit of Halloween pilgrim costumes, their buckle hat going, I'm gonna not look like you. Okay. So with we have one 17th century painting that is like a bunch of like noblemen like at like a table. They all have black and white buckled hats, and like black is the most expensive color that you can have. And so with all of that, it's kind of so you're a little bit lower class, I see, Kelly. Yeah. So with all of it, that's what they have. And so we always assumed that there was a buckle hat and things of that nature. And it just always stayed that way. It's funny how history is interpreted. That's the biggest and best part about all of this is that for my job is half the time going, no, I'm not a Puritan. No, I don't have a buckle hat. Yes, I have fun. And my house is made out of daub, and the roofs are made out of thatch and all of that stuff. It's really interesting, but it's also perspective and worldview. How did you become involved with Plymouth Patuxet and portray Myles and others? Great question. So I am an actor and entertainer by trade. I went to acting school, went to theater school. I'm a theater major, so I have nothing to do with history whatsoever. And so how did I get into here, and how do I start doing speakers bureaus and talks? And I actually thoroughly enjoy and love all of this. The big thing behind it is throughout my life, in everyone's moment in time, COVID hit, and theater shut down, performance entertainment shut down. But when the museum was opening back up, they were looking for actors, and I thought, you know what, the best thing to do in the entire world, let's go play pretend as a pilgrim. And it's outside, it's fun, having a great time. And so it was John Billington Jr. last year, and the program had transformed into museum theater. Plymouth Patuxet Museums for the past 30 plus years have done something called historical interpretation. Basically, really, really aggressive LARPing, live action role playing, talking in accents. We have the costumes. You live the life of a pilgrim. And so it's really awesome, because the people who work here love this moment in history and want to give and showcase this history to you. But here's the thing, is we can't make it consistent, because you'll have a conversation like we are for an hour or 2 hours or so on. You're talking to that pilgrim and they're exhausted. And then you go to the next one and you just get a bad experience, but that pilgrim's equally exhausted because, they've been talking for 2 hours equally as well. So we got to make sure we have a consistent experience. So my job here at the museum is to bring the theatrical entertainment element and be able to give you, the guest, a consistent experience. Every time you come in, it's your choose your own adventure. You get thrown on a ride that you didn't even know you signed up for. And you basically go through an entire live production, immersive theater production, the entire time that I created with my team. And basically the entire time, that's what I do here. I went from a pilgrim to now creating the whole entire thing, and I have an absolute blast. I mean, my job in the off season is literally just to create this over and over and over again and talking funny voices.
You do it really well.
No, stop it, Kelly. Keep going. I'm a narcissist, so.
So I think our hour's up. Mr. Cassidy, do you want to bring it home?
Sure. I mean, do we have any final questions? Because we are just about at our deadline for 1 o'clock. Where will this recording be posted? We can certainly take this recording, edit it, and post it for free, where everyone can access it. Kelly, on the name of the website?
Oh yeah, or we could. It might be a bit big, so we might want to upload it. But yeah, we'll let you know. How about that?
Excellent.
I think that's a good plan. So I want to thank everyone for attending. I especially want to thank Evan and Plymouth Patuxet for, being available today and arranging this and all the work you did to prepare for this. It's been a fantastic, hour discussion with you and also with Myles Standish. So we
Yeah,
really
he
appreciate it very
sits in the
much.
back seat.
We appreciate it very, very much. So on behalf of the North American Manx Association, thank you. Thanks to all of you for attending, and we hope to see you all again soon.
How do
And
you say goodbye in Manx?
You say, well, I should say first, you say thank you. Good my murid, many thanks to you. And to say goodbye, you could say a couple of things, but we like himu or himshu, which is literally I'll see you.
Himu or himshu.
yeah.
Gudamar Mora, was that it?
Yep.
Shinne.
Wow,
Yep.
that was brilliant. Nobody ever remembers it. And we'll give you one last one before we go. There you go. Say it, Bill.
Which one is that, Kevin? Oh, Nulak Genel, which is Merry Christmas, but you don't celebrate Christmas, or at least Myles does not.
Myles
Oh,
doesn't. I do.
We can say Blaine Vi Noah, which is Happy New Year.
Ingvi Nor.
Blaine, it's behind me. See, I'm going to back away. Can you pop up my screen?
All right, that's amazing.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, North American Manx members, for turning out for this. This was absolutely thrilling. Thank you so much, Evan.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Hope to see you guys soon at the museum.
Bye. Emu.
Emu.